We are now recording the May 1st, 2020 Small Business Accounting Advisors. Hello, everyone.
Happy Friday.
Happy May Day.
Happy May Day.
We made it to May. I didn't think it was ever going to come.
That was the longest April ever.
That was the longest April since January was 756 days.
It was at least 6 years long.
It was.
It's a long trip.
So today we're going to talk about the payroll protection loan. The first question I want to start out with is, does anybody have clients that have actually received money for the loan? Yes, yes, yes. Good. What banks have worked the best for you?
SunTrust.
BBT, SunTrust?
BBT, SunTrust.
Liberty.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Liberty Bank. We have a small bank here in Connecticut.
There's a Centric Bank that I've never heard of that's doing well.
Yeah.
You know who I'm not hearing? I'm not hearing Bank of America. I'm not hearing Wells Fargo.
I've got one with Bank of America. They said it should be Monday.
Not hearing Chase.
No, Chase.
I just got an email from Bank of America today that I will have my SBA documents in the next couple of days.
Yeah. I've got a couple of those teasers.
Yeah, yeah.
All of my clients that have gotten their money have gone to small local banks. I had one person who was with Chase. Nothing happened the first round. She opened a new account at a small local bank on Friday last week and got funded this morning.
Yay, that's good.
Congratulations to her.
I have one that gave up on, might have been BOA. And she found Queensboro. It was like the bank, college friend of her son's banker.
It's the smaller banks.
And she said, I just moved $250,000 into a money market in their account. And she said within hours, she was approved. I'm like, really? So, but she needed to diversify her cash
into a money market probably had a lot to do with that too.
Tina,
a situation
Ernest
like that
needs to get in.
Can you let
thank you. I've been trying to watch this whole thing about the waiting room.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Okay.
Go ahead.
From your experience, does the bank suggest that they open a separate account? Do they automatically put the money into a separate account for them?
I haven't had any.
I've had a couple
chatter about it.
I've heard a lot of chatter about it. I don't know that it's a specific rule or requirement.
I've had two.
Two?
It's the bank.
HSBC and Liberty both require a separate account.
So when the person gets notified that they have the funds, where are the funds? Just
in the new account.
Right.
When we filled out SunTrust and BB&T, it actually asked us for a banking and routing number on the application.
Yeah.
And then it just showed up.
in the regular account, or
whatever bank account I gave them, yeah.
But it wasn't a new bank account. That's what
No.
I'm saying. Okay.
Now, I wondered, like with this Queensboro situation, they weren't an existing customer, so of course they're gonna
ask for specific.
Ask for a new bank. You know, if we're gonna help you out here, you need to be a patron of our bank. So that makes sense. You know, isolating money doesn't really.
It's good bookkeeping.
It's good bookkeeping
that we assume are being done, but most people do not.
It depends on the client. If I'm in charge of the books, and hell, I'm a nonprofit accountant, I know how to do restricted
exactly
accounting all day long. I do not want a separate bank account. I also had no tricks to hide, you know, out of sight, out of mind if somebody's got a cash flow problem and you don't want them to spend funds. But you know, the way this is to actually screw up we're only talking payroll. and rent and some other major expense categories. So payroll's usually direct deposit. Well, mixed in all that is your, you don't want to be screwing up your getting a new direct deposit account and all. I just think that's overkill. What I'd prefer to do is keep tight reins on it, have a projection spreadsheet, and start journaling from a liability account to revenue, or some sort of visual, even if it's a fake bank account, whatever trick works.
Well, that's one of my questions too. Are you recording it as a liability or income?
Yeah, liability.
Liability.
Current liability.
And we're not going to know forgiveness until they absolutely finalize the calculations for forgiveness. Because
I've actually seen where we're going to make sure they're going to audit it and make sure that the money that was spent. So you're going to need payroll docs, grants, all of that, copies of checks, because they're going to audit that to make sure the funds were spent the way that they were.
Right.
Exactly. But doesn't that fall under good bookkeeping practices?
You should have those records anyway.
Falls under government bookkeeping.
Well, they've said they will audit 2 million and up. And then I saw some literature today that was talking about the bank's responsibility and what can they accept from the customer as documentation to prove the forgiveness. And basically, because it's actually said, can they rely on our records without actually going in and auditing them? And it says, yes, they're held harmless if we provide them with.
Doesn't your 941s, when you file your 941s, doesn't it give you that information?
Most of it, not all of it.
There's a lot more into the calculations weekly and data payroll and all that's not really on a 941. But
But I'm just saying is proof of what you've done and where you've spent your money.
Payroll, I would think payroll records.
Who's going to audit the books? IRS?
That's what I'm saying. The bank, see, the bank is going to do whatever for them to be comfortable that they're authorizing the forgiveness before the SBA is going to
okay.
And I think we're going to get in the same problem where every bank's going to have a different
set of rules,
risk threshold.
I mean, isn't it the SBA that ultimately is going to be, they have their own requirement of how they audit, and I think that would be
right. And they can't audit like millions and millions and millions of companies. I'm sure it's going to be just like the IRS. It's going to be over 2 million, definitely. Different levels. What kind of records did they get? And then they're going to do random audits. How else could they do it?
I was watching the news this morning. They were talking about that for some businesses it wouldn't make sense to take this money because, like, say, for example, restaurants where if they can only operate at 25% capacity, there's no way they can stay in business, and then they'd be liable for all this rules and keeping all this. So some people may think it's just better just to close down and try to start up next year.
So
what happens if you can't follow the rules? Then you just don't get the forgiveness, and it becomes a loan.
Right. Well, here's the thing. I'm telling people, especially after finding out that they said it was going to be tax-free and it's not. Now that we know that, in essence, the money from the PPP that's forgiven is affecting our tax liability. Okay. Would we have made a different business decisions back in a month ago, 2 months ago, if we had known? For instance, if I'm going to open my store, I've decided to open my store and bring whatever employees back, that's a business decision. Okay. Now, when it comes to being forced closed and you have all these employees on unemployment and the government says, we don't want them on unemployment, bring them back on the payroll. We're going to fund the money instead of your state. Okay. So your employees go out on unemployment, you get your PPP money, you bring everybody off unemployment. They're all raising hell because they lose their $600. Okay. So employees who are already in chaos and their lives are upside down and they're scared and all that. You're already screwing with them. And now you bring them back on the payroll, pay time off, find out the money's not free, as I said. And now you're having to pay taxes on the money. Now you've got the share and FICA taxes, and you also have to pay workers' comp. So maybe they're also working on new workers' comp codes for COVID, but you know, and so clients are looking at us going, wait a minute, you said this was a good idea. It's coming right back at us. Employees are upset. The clients are upset. We finally got a couple days where the phone and the email wasn't going crazy. And we wake up to this IRS ruling. So there's different thoughts like, well, of course you didn't think that money would be free. But
And then you have other people saying, well, why don't we just give our employees cash?
Oh, yeah. That was a joke. That was a joke. But you want to pivot for a second? There is a ruling that came out after, I think, September 11th that says when there's a catastrophe like this and a pandemic does qualify, and say your employee can't pay their rent and you go, I'm going to gift you $2,000, okay? And typically, if you give that money to your employee, it's taxable on their W-2. If it's a pandemic, it's not. You can give money freely to your employees and it's not income tax.
You have a gift tax limitation?
Yeah, well,
Not on a business.
I was talking with a colleague, and what they were thinking about doing was loaning the money to the employee, giving a loan and letting them collect unemployment, and then they would pay the loan back when they came back through before all of this was determined. I mean, that's some of the thought process that's been out there.
There is an interesting twist. I tell you what, you can get real creative when people are hungry.
Oh, yeah.
Unemployment, or the percentage of unemployment is going to go up for the employers also.
Not in Georgia if we reported it first.
What does that mean?
But I have
The base rates.
Yeah, the state
No
rates.
changing rate.
I have clients that are having people come attached to their unemployment that have not worked for them for over a year.
I've been filling
You know
that
why?
paper
It always
out.
goes back to if you haven't worked enough in the test period, it goes back to your employer before that. Yeah, how are they
Right,
doing that?
And I just had one from the lady I fired in November. And she put on there that she was working 20 hours a week for me and making $8 an hour more than I was paying her. I filled that sucker out.
And you don't get the notice until after the appeal date is over.
I had
That's
one day.
insane. They
My
don't
client
deserve
did not.
unemployment.
The mail date, the clear date on the mail was 2 weeks after the appeal date.
Because they're that far behind.
Yep.
But if you actually, so my date was May 1st. I got it in the mail yesterday. So I filled
So
it
you're
out
lucky.
today. No, but when I went to appeal it, the date was pushed up to May 11th.
So you had time to actually, and didn't have to do the certified mail and all of that to prove your date.
Right, but I didn't know that until I logged into the system.
Oh, okay.
So I'm telling everybody, log into the system if you get those letters and see if, especially if you want to appeal it or deny the claim or, report a problem. Everybody has different terminology for their states, but always log in and go to the benefit determination and do the appeal. Because even if it's late, you can still put correspondence in there because the states are acknowledging that the letters that normally it takes, once they're printed, it takes 2 to 3 days for them to get mailed, and then it takes however long else to get to you. They're acknowledging that it's taking a week or two from the time that they're printed before they get.
Well, I don't know how soon mail that they're receiving is being opened. I think that they're more than a week or two behind in.
Not Connecticut.
No, it's the electronic correspondence. Most of the unemployment websites, you can do correspondence right on there.
So
Now,
what's
Georgia, they're saying, here's the phone number, here's the address to mail.
They're
And there's
telling
some
Pennsylvania
electronic,
people,
but
don't
it's-
bother calling. We're not going to answer the phone.
Now, I did find first DOLs on Facebook. Facebook's been in a wealth of knowledge, let me tell you.
Yeah.
DOL has their own Facebook page, and of course, they just got buried. And then somebody started a Facebook page just for people who weren't getting answers, and it's just been interesting to follow and see the different problems that people have. And then all of a sudden this morning it was like, I got mine, just weeks worth. So it's all kinds of issues, like some people are getting reduced pay and their employer is supposed to report the reduced pay, and then they see if you're eligible for anything, and if it's over $300. Anyway, your state unemployment has to be at least $1 in order to get the $600 federal. So that I found that interesting. I tell you one thing that's been very embarrassing and breaks my heart though. We're so careful with our payroll records and our quarterlies and our W-2s, okay? Especially Social Security numbers. I mean, messing up somebody's Social Security number is pretty serious business, okay? And in Georgia, the very first time we did the DOL online, you had to hand key in everybody's Social Security number and everybody's name, okay? And it has been filling every quarter. You just pull up and key in all the new wages, right? So if somebody's DOL was put in incorrectly in that system, that could go on for years and you won't know about it until, surprise, one of those poor employees needs their unemployment.
Oh.
And we handle, I don't know, 1,200 W-2s. And we have 2. One of of course, my bookkeeper calls them tears, but fortunately, it's a lady that doesn't work. Her husband works. She was so gracious. Okay, it's not the end of the world. The other woman, because she took a picture of her letter and sent it to me, and it showed no wages, and she's worked there for years, and it's our fault. It's our fault that she's not getting money. That woman needs groceries. Okay. So, just I'm responsible for that. I mean, we're taking care of her on our own outside of this whole mess, but there's no way to fix it. There's amended DOLs. They're really designed for wages, changes of wages and tax and all that. It's really not designed to fix the Social Security number. So I said, okay, so we put it like on incorrect or on correctly and then off incorrectly with the same name. And anyway, so we did that for all the quarters. And then of course we mailed them. And then I'm like, that's going to take weeks and weeks and weeks. So we went online to the portal, and there is a place where you can upload appeal documents. It asks for the employee's name, and I put in the Social Security number and and her name, and it popped up her name, and I just started uploading. I'm like, I don't know what human being's gonna get them. I don't, but here's a woman that she needs her money.
Right.
She needs her money. So, but see how antiquated our systems are.
Oh, absolutely.
They're asking for COBOL programmers.
Is life-changing for the people that need it.
Yeah.
So where are we getting our information when we need it? For things like that.
I know. Well,
for the glitches.
I don't know about you guys, but the Treasury website and the SBA website, but you have to reprint them over and over and over because they keep editing the document. it'll have little revision dates on it. So, and then Forbes has great articles. But every other article, law firms, accounting firms, and all that, those are human beings interpreting, so you have to tread real lightly with that.
I don't know. I've had some good luck with some CPA firms with some good documentation, supporting documentation back to it. That and some good Facebook forums. That CARES group, that was like dynamite when this first came out.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, there's so many changes that are happening that it's so hard to stay on top of it all.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
I'm wondering, I'm very risk averse. I'm always
That's an accountant
hanging out on websites that are like HR.
Isn't that in the definition
lawsuits.
of accountants?
Like lawsuits, any cases that are going on that have anything to do with employees or accounting, that stuff fascinates me. If you want to find out what rule works or doesn't work, read the lawsuits. So there are already lawsuits on the books. They're going after the banks, for messing up the PPP. I read one article. Okay, like Georgia opens up. So if somebody's afraid to come to work, they lose their unemployment. Well, there's a lot of wiggle room in those rules. They can say,
yeah, I know.
There is.
They didn't give me the mask on time, or it was a cheap mask, or can you even imagine how bad this is going to be? Employees, I told one client, I said, you've had your employees for years, okay? And you think they're loyal? You think they're your friend? Said, when it comes to survival
and putting food on your family's table, no,
you're telling them to come to work and work with the public. I'm like, I can't tell you what to do. I can be here as a shoulder, but I'm going to be that little voice going, think about it, don't be surprised,
Well, most fraud is created by loyal employees, trusted employees.
Trusted employees. Yeah, most fraud. You're right.
Mr. Fraud speaking.
I don't know.
So Laurie, you have a question. Let's bring up your question.
Me?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. So my $1 million question is this. If you got the EIDL grant advanced to you, and then you got your PPP, and as you know, the EIDL goes into your PPP, how does that work with forgiveness? Because
right off the top,
nothing's taxable.
It's really a cash advance that if you get no other money, you can keep it.
But that's not the words they used. Sorry. That's the thing. They keep changing the language. And the big question on this is, how is this going to affect the S Corps when it comes to forgiveness?
I'm an S Corp. I got both.
I'm an S Corp.
I got both.
Me too.
And it just showed up. It just like, no email, no notice,
No, nothing.
Just showed up in the bank. $1,000 per employee.
The day before my EIDL money showed up in my bank account, I got a notice that my credit was pulled.
Yeah, I got that too.
Let me check my credit. That makes
That's
sense.
how you know you're getting the money.
But I mean, how much more is this going to change? I think 5 weeks from now, when people are going to be going to go for that forgiveness, I think the rules are going to change.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm telling you, I had that. I just had a copy. I'm so sorry. I have a projection spreadsheet to just sort of draft out where I think this forgiveness is going to land. It was shared by Schroeder. Forget Jacob.
Yeah, Jacob Schroeder.
I sort of tweaked it and all. It was great. a great start. So, boy,
Do
that's
you
an
want to share that with us if you don't mind? I mean, put it in the group
I
for
could.
those that want it.
Sure. That's an eye opener, especially when you look at timing.
Yeah.
So the one
Right there.
I did yesterday, they said the cash should be deposited on Monday. So I filled out my little spreadsheet and everything. I say, okay, and I look at the calendar. I go, Monday. What are we in? We are in, that's May 4th. Well, rent's already been paid. So May's rent's out of whack. They'll pay for June's rent. The 8 weeks run out before July's rent. Then I look at payroll. Their payroll, some of their payroll, all their salary payroll is 15th and the 31st. Okay. So we have payroll. The 31st of June is outside the 8 weeks.
31st
The
of
math
June.
doesn't work. So they're going to have to address things like this. What I'm telling people is, look, it's all subjective. We really don't know how it's going to be forgiven exactly. At this point, it's
I don't
too
think it will.
freaking late. We've already applied and got the money. So if you think that it wasn't a good idea, set the money aside. We've got some wiggle room as far as when they start accruing the 1%, and just slow down and wait. And if worst case, you give the money back.
Right.
And
What's our deadline to make that decision?
well, see, SunTrust is sending I consider them threatening letters. Based on what we've learned now, blah, 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 you certified that you were going to be harmed, blah, blah, blah. And you have until May 7th to give the money back.
Right.
Okay. And I'm
Yeah.
like, you know what? It's aimed at the really big people. It's aimed at the publicly traded companies and stuff like that. But, you know, clients are calling going, I certified that I'm going to be harmed. And I'm like, well, for me, for instance, I have not been harmed in April and maybe not May. I bet I am in June, July. I bet I am before the end of the year. So if you read what I certified to, you know, is my revenue going to be harmed? I have a couple major clients teetering on
Bankrupt.
losing them.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So based on that, you know, plus I'm harmed. I haven't had any sleeping.
You know, and you know, to kind of go along with what you were saying, Sarah, I had a client that I was just starting to onboard
Mm-hmm.
that was a restaurant group.
Mm.
So I lost
Yeah.
that, I'm not going to say the number, but I lost
Fine harm.
I lost that revenue. I was gearing up. I had employees in place that now don't have jobs because I was gearing up for this restaurant group to come on board,
Right.
because it was going to be 80 hours a week of work.
Yeah, I know. So it was so vague. How on earth can they hold us liable for something that's that vague?
They can't.
But it's the government. You know, I don't know about you guys, but I've never said I don't know so many times in my career.
Yeah. I mean, I had a client literally harass the bank for a week straight. Like, are we going to get this loan? Are we going to get this loan? Are we going to get this loan? The banker replied to the client, yes, you're getting it. He got the documents and sat on it for a week because he wanted to make sure the funding came in the week that the payroll hit.
There's gonna be, we're right.
That was $563,000 they got of PPP money, just as an FYI.
Crazy. I know. I mean, everything from the smallest ones that is like, can we just have some help for, you know, it makes makes all the difference whether they're going to survive or not.
Right.
Right, and some of the companies that the EIDL got taken away because they don't have employees, they don't qualify for PPP,
Right.
they're done. They've got nothing that they can really apply for. So they're closed. They're not my personal clients, but they're people that I know who they are, and they're closed because they can't, you can't justify keeping your storefront when you can't be open and you've got no money coming in. You can't, you have no choice but to break your lease and break all of the agreements that you made in good faith because you had a plan. And
Once you break your lease, you're under on most leases.
Yeah.
don't you think?
And I've heard business leaders tell their businesses, if you have to go bankrupt, just give it up and go bankrupt, and then wait a little bit and restart your business. I mean, I've heard that advice
Yeah.
come out.
Yep.
well, and it's sad that we're at that point where that is the best advice we can give people is to file bank, just burn it all down and hope you don't lose everything. But I mean, you've got people that have already put their whole life savings into opening a restaurant. This happened in the town next to me where they put their whole life savings into opening a restaurant. Guess what day they opened their restaurant?
What, like March 15th or something?
No, March 10th. They were closed March 15th.
You know, and I've heard arguments of, well, good management, you should have had the cash set aside and planned and all. In the nonprofit world, we almost insist that there's a healthy nonprofit has 6 months worth of fixed operating in the bank. You don't really see regular clients doing that. I'll see my nonprofits doing that. But, in fixed costs, like say all the employees go on unemployment, you stop buying, so you're not paying vendors, you stop, in order to have a place to go back to, rent's the number one nut to crack on a monthly basis, and our fees, of course, because we're on contract. But speaking of which, I haven't had one client ask me to reduce my fee. All I'm hearing is, I can't believe the hours you're working to help us, so.
I had some nice emails come through from clients, and I had a handwritten letter the other day, just really the gratitude's been there.
And chocolate? Didn't we get chocolate from some
Nice.
sweets?
Nice. So I'm going to end on what tips do you have for people to get through this? Good record keeping, of course.
Right.
Save your 941s.
It's
Know
really
your full-time
regular
employee equivalent. Know that now.
That is a whole nother conversation. Full-time, we could talk another half an hour on full-time.
Maybe look for fixed costs you can try to cut.
Yeah, fixed cost. There's all kinds of strategies,
But have one.
These are administrative type chores. Okay. So as accountants, if we're their advisor or part of their management team, which is the way I sell that's my business model.
Yeah.
I'm not just doing your books. I'm part of the team. Yeah. Then you have to have an honest conversation about, look, we need to do this. I need to help you do this or whatever. And, and it's out of scope too, but depending on the client and how valuable the client is or how valuable I am long-term, it may be worth it for me to just say, we've already gone through their whole budget process back in November or whatever, and you're really starting all over again with fresh eyes, more of a cash flow angle,
Right.
But well, maybe next week we can talk about strategies.
Yeah.
Well, and the biggest advice I've been giving to my clients, because I primarily am a payroll provider, I am telling them, don't keep them on payroll if there's no work for them to do. Put them on unemployment sooner rather than later, because that's going to free up your cash flow. And you can't count on getting this PPP money And I don't know how many times I said it today alone. Worst case scenario is it doesn't get forgiven and the PPP converts to a 1% loan.
Right. How many of y'all have clients who went, you know, they've had their business for a long time, they've had their employees for a long time, they're, I'm going to pay them whether they're home or not.
Yeah.
For an entire month. That's a lot of payroll out of their pocket. They've diminished all their savings. They get their PPP and now it's going to help me in the next 8 weeks. But all that cash is gone.
Right.
That client that I told you about did that. They kept all their employees, all 48. They only furloughed 2 just this last week. So, but they took. I had the conversation with them, and they were, you know what? We have the funds. We're going to front. We want to keep our people. We want to know that we're invested in.
We want to know they got paid because unemployment's iffy.
Yeah. So
I know it's.
I want to say I have a few clients that did that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you're paying people to stay home, you're building up your trust fund liability, which doesn't get forgiven in bankruptcy.
Say that again?
You're building up your trust fund liability on the payroll.
941, yeah.
And that
so
doesn't get.
I don't believe it gets forgiven in bankruptcy.
It doesn't even get forgiven in death.
Oh yeah, that sucks. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Gosh, so much to think about. I wanted to do one thing before we left. I don't know if we have any time.
Go ahead.
Very quickly, Ernest and I have been working on a custom AR report for clients, audit clients, or any client that you have to do allowances for with their AR. And I just want to show it to you real quick because I want to.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to screen share and screen share right here and then share. And then do you see that?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. If you do an AR aging at the end of the year, Mr. John Bush these are all open items in AR, and it shows just the activity in 2020 that has to do with that AR. It isolates all your year 2020 activity, and you can see whether the AR is still outstanding or not.
Nice.
Isn't that nice? So if I'm working up allowances or I'm looking for a bet, we're already 5 months into it. After 5 months, 6 months, I need an answer. I need AR people. Are we going to write it off? Is it risky? Should we have given them a discount? This is the medical office. So should we have given them a discount? Did we not get the insurance? But it's a tool to see where we are. So their April invoice is paid late, but anyway, and then you start seeing totals. But anyway, that is the custom work of Mr. Ernest.
Is that
Reporting?
desktop or QBO?
This is desktop. We're using QCube extracts all the data out of the desktop file, and he's written a custom crystal report report and a front end on it. All I do is click, and this date up here, 5/1, is the last time I synced the data. So
Nice.
yeah. So nice. I could see audit purposes, year-end purposes, and just working your AR. So,
I have a couple people that would love this.
That's what we want to hear.
It's available immediately.
All righty.
I get a lot of hours into that.
We get used to hearing what QuickBooks won't do, and so we stop looking. So
there you go. So contact Ernest if you have a need for that report.
Please.
All righty, we're going to end on that note. So
Yes.
we will see you all same time, same place next week.
Yay.
yes, we can.